This is Leslie from Salinas Public Library, and today we are going to work on preparing our royal icing. You will need to have a bowl, a spatula, some water, either in a spray bottle or just a small eyedropper, or even just a teaspoon of water, a cup. You'll need your two colors. I have red and white, and of course you're going to need the royal icing that you would have already made. Mine has been in the freezer for I think about a week. But I took it out earlier today, so it should be ready to go. You'll notice it's very stiff when we take it out and not very smooth. Before we get started with the icing, let's get our piping bags into a cup. Go ahead and take one of your bags, open it up, stick it down inside the cup, and then pull the excess over the side. I like to make sure that I've got a good pocket in there that the end isn't sticking up. To make life a little easier and faster, I will often stack my bags and do 6 or 10 in here, so it's just one step fewer. Today we're going to be making 4 colors, but you can make more colors or fewer, whatever you would like to do. I'm gonna start out with the white. I always start with my lightest color and then move on up to the darker ones. All right, so go ahead and take the icing that you have and give it a good stir. You'll notice that it's going to smooth out quite a lot, but it's still a fairly stiff consistency. So we need to water that down a bit. Now, I've already colored this icing white when I made it, but if you haven't done that yet, go ahead and add a couple of drops and stir it on up. So I'm gonna take my spray bottle and just give it a couple of squirts. If you ever put in too much water, the fix to that is either put in some more of your base icing or just add some icing sugar. And if you don't have enough water, just add more. It is definitely getting softer because you can see it does a soft peak and collapses now, but it is still not the right consistency for what we need. You'll often hear people talking about a certain second of icing, whether it's a 10-second, a 15-second, or a 30-second. When they're doing that, they refer to how long it takes for the icing to come back on itself to heal after you draw a line down the middle. So right now, if I go ahead and run my spatula through, there is a line here. And now if we're talking about a 10-second icing, that line would be completely disappearing within 10 seconds. Because we're only going to use one consistency for our cookies, we want it to be sort of in the middle. So not super thick, but not super thin. So basically that would be the equivalent of about a 15-second icing. Now you can see this is definitely getting looser. It will run off the spatula. Let's see what happens if I do my little cut down the middle. You can see that it is coming back together a little more quickly. Another way to tell is if you let it drip off of your spatula, you'll see the way it piles down there. The same thing, you want to see how long will it take for that to melt itself back in. You can see that's going quite quickly actually. It's smoothing out. And we can also give it a little test if you wiggle your spatula on the top of it. If that smooths it out, then it's just about ready. So I'm gonna go ahead and bag this. Bring that cup on over and just pour it in. Now all we need to do is pull up the edges, get the rest of this closed. Now, I like to do something called a helicopter. And that is where I'm going to twist the top of the bag. I'll often wrap it around my fingers and then I'm going to spin it and let the force of the movement push the icing down into the bag. This will actually help to get rid of some air bubbles. Push it down with my hand and tie it off. And there we go. We've got our white icing ready. If you accidentally let go of this while you're spinning it, icing is going to explode all over. We're ready to move on to the next color. We can use the same bowl because we only had white in here. Now we're going to be doing 3 shades essentially, just using that red food coloring. So because we're doing 3, we want to have a lot of icing. We need to make enough to do 3 little batches from within this. Now with the gel coloring, the coloring in the bottle is very saturated. Now I've got a lot of icing here, so it will likely take a fair number of drops. But you always want to start light and then work your way on towards the color that you are actually wanting. Icing will develop in color after you've mixed it for probably 2 to 4 hours. It will continue to darken or deepen. So keep that in mind too when you go for your color. We're going to start out just making a pink. Go ahead and add 1 drop to that and then mix it in. If you have too much color in there, it'll separate away from the bulk of the icing. So don't oversaturate it. Always start with a small amount and just gradually add it. Now, if I wanted to make this lighter, all I would have to do is add some more of my base icing in. Adding white food coloring at this point is not going to change the color. It's not strong enough to counteract the red. So if you want to lighten it up, your only way to do that is to add in more of your base icing. All right, so I've got my icing, but I need to water it down. It is definitely not the texture I need. And because I know I have quite a bit in here, I'm gonna add like a whole bunch of squirts just at once. When you do reuse your bowl between colors, you're gonna wanna make sure that you scoop up all that icing that was up at the lip of the bowl, just so that when you put it in the bag, you don't end up with a chunk that doesn't have the right color. All right, so now that's turning to a soft peak, but this is still too stiff. It does not run off my spatula at all. It just stays stuck. So again, with some water. I like this spray bottle better than the eyedropper or spooning it in because I just have more control and it lets out a smaller amount. It also is easier to mix in because it's diffused when it goes into the bowl, as opposed to if I was using a spoon and just scooping water in, then it would go all in one place. Okay, we're getting there now. Okay, this is better. I feel like it's gonna ribbon off a little more and it's gonna smooth out when I do the shake test. So I'm gonna call this good for my light pink, and I'm gonna put some of this into a bag, not all of it, because we're going to actually add more color to what we leave back and have that be our next darker tone. Scoop some in this way. I'm not gonna put a lot in. So I scooped it in, pulled the bag out, pull up the sides, and I am gonna do the very dangerous helicopter maneuver. Once I get it all swung around, I just pull down by putting my thumb and forefinger together, twist it a little, and then tie it off. We're gonna go back to the pink bowl that we have and we're going to darken it. So we're gonna go ahead and add another drop of the red. We already have this at a really good consistency, so chances are we won't need to add any more water. We might, but probably not. Now remember I said that the color will develop or darken. It's going to look different when you get it on your cookie than it does in the bowl right now. If we look at it in the bowl compared to the other pink, there's not a lot of difference, but this is going to darken up. I'm gonna go with one more just so that we get a big color difference. And then I think I'm gonna call this one good. This is gonna turn out to be kind of more of a salmon-y color, I think. Okay, let me pour some of this in. And then I'm gonna do just one more color, but if you wanna keep going and darkening it or start with lighter ones than this, do as many as you want. You've got extra piping bags. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the last one. I'm gonna come back to my bowl and I'm gonna add some more red. Now, it's not going to look red in the bowl, I guarantee it. It will definitely darken up, but it's not going to look as red as you think it should. Red is one of the more difficult colors. The problem is that the red dye, if you put too much of it in, it has a kind of an aftertaste. There are other colors that don't do that, but the red always kind of ends up bitter. All right, so this is my red. I know it doesn't look super red, it looks more pink. I could keep going and add some more red, but I'm gonna call this good because I know that it will turn out darker than this after it's had a few hours to rest. So here I go with my last bag. This was a nice, easy way to do it with variations on the same color because we didn't have to clean out the bowl in between. And I do, as I said, I always start with the lightest color and then just keep adding into the bowl and moving on with my darker ones. Now, I'm not going to be using these for a while, so I'm actually gonna put them in the fridge. You can put them in the fridge or the freezer. In the fridge, they'll stay good for weeks. In the freezer, they'll still stay good for months. There we have our 4 color variations. So, as I said, they're going to look different than this when they develop, but this is where they start. All right, you guys, the next step will be actually decorating our cookies. I'm very excited to do that with you.